If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on all listening platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many more. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So go ahead, download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
What's going on, world? This is Isaiah from Making It Make Sense with Isaiah, Theo, and Vincent. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page at Making It Make Sense, ITV, and listen to new episodes every Friday, and maybe slide into our DMs on Instagram. Or actually, just leave us a comment at Making It Make Sense, ITV. Stay conscious and stay lit. What's going on, world? And welcome back to Making It Make Sense with Isaiah, Theo, Vincent, and Danielle. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, boundaries.
My favorite topic too.
Yeah.
Motherfuckers who can't motherfucking follow them.
Oh, okay, Vincent. That
Sorry.
You know already. He's on fire.
Came in hot. Like, oh, wow. I mean, so
where do we start?
I've definitely...
Let's start with Doug. Fuck Doug. No, I'm just joking.
Wow. Oh, we got to bleep that out, Vincent. No.
You leave that shit in. Whatever.
Well, no, we'll leave it in.
Fuck.
So I guess really, I would like to start kind of with like, what's everyone's personal definition of boundaries? And I guess let's start kind of at a little bit more on the surface, and then we can kind of dive in a little bit deeper.
Can I give like the Webster Dictionary definition?
I would love that.
Boundaries can be defined set with other people, which indicate what we find acceptable and unacceptable in their behavior towards us.
Mm-hmm.
Love that one. I think.
Yes.
Were you prepared?
I love that for you, Theo.
This is 100% what I believe boundaries are.
Yes.
And I am a person. Boundaries have saved my life. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I grew up in a very strict household where boundaries were set. As being a 250
like
pounds.
600 pounds. Like, damn, Theo.
I'm 650 pounds. No, being a
You look good. Get it.
That was misspoke. Sorry.
You look good.
I'm
You put in that
650,
work.
baby.
I know, I'm like, you are wearing it well, child.
I am 6 feet, 250 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So I am not a small man.
Mm-hmm.
And so being a man looking like myself, I need to understand boundaries. Mm-hmm. Because in those things I learned at an early age. And I learned that with my parents who set very healthy boundaries in my life. Mm-hmm. And I, as an adult, crave boundaries. I, as an adult in my relationships and in my workplace, I crave boundaries because boundaries save lives.
They do.
And when it comes to those things, I am very forgiving boundaries because a lot of people grew up with no boundaries. They grew up like fucking horses in a stable somewhere. And so not everybody has the luxury of understanding boundaries. But I love boundaries. Mm-hmm. And I'll just start with that.
So for me, I've had a pretty interesting journey with boundaries because I wouldn't set them so much. Really until I don't think I really set firm boundaries with friends and family and the like, until I just I expected people to I'll say this too. I expected a certain level of boundary like in my life to begin with. Right. So there was the expectation and then there was the reality, like versus the reality. And the reality many a times was, oh, Isaiah won't mind, or, oh, that's fine. He's not
Like
like
if you don't actively set them, then
right, because I wasn't actively participating in setting them. So, and I think there were people that would just assume that, oh, okay, well, he seems easygoing, so not a big deal.
Not today.
Yes, until which point, and I think this is when things started to change for me, is when I started setting kind of, I like to call them hard and fast boundaries. And in some cases, I would communicate that. And in other cases, I wouldn't. And I would just stop talking to you because you violated a boundary of mine. And I just would kind of go, okay, I'm not giving you an explanation as to why I'm removing you from my space. That's what I'm just going to do. And that's it. And that came like very quickly it didn't come very quickly for me, because for me, it was an entire journey. It came very quickly, seemingly so for some people, because oh, wow. Okay. Well, that was a change, Isaiah. That's different. And it's like, yes, it is different because this is something I need to do for me, because this is what feels good for me. And this is what feels safe for me. And I always used to kind of also, I would be a little hard on myself about setting boundaries, because I felt that it had a lot, like that it would seem very self-centered and just very self-centric. And I feel
that is okay.
Yes, and I realized that much later, because I would be a little hard on myself because being self-centric comes with the only child territory. So it's just assumed that, I think in many cases, if there's just you, that you are incredibly self-involved and incredibly self-centric. And I'm not saying that there are not times when I can't be, like, because yes, absolutely.
All within reason, though.
But Theo, so that's also okay. And sometimes it takes time to learn that. Like, it's okay to be selfish sometimes for your own mental health.
Absolutely. And that's when it came for me, actually, is when I started to realize that there were times when my mental health was incredibly, sorry, I can't speak today, incredibly fragile. And there would be times where I would just there's times even now where I'll go, okay, I feel like there's a level of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like almost like there's too much sensory, too many things happening, like social overload, if you will, and things of that nature. And so sometimes I will just kind of disappear into myself a little bit, and I won't speak to anyone for a little while, or I won't answer something right away. And there's times where I feel bad about that, but those are boundaries for me. Now, when I've had to communicate those boundaries, though, that's, for whatever reason, because it seemed like so abrupt to some people, it would be the cause of conflict, because I would say to someone in the moment, I don't like that, don't speak to me that way, or I don't like that, don't say that to me, or I don't, because usually I would just kind of go, okay, I don't really like that, but I'm just gonna not say anything about it and just let it's fine. And then I went, no, it's not fine. And I would just kind of check it in the moment and be like, oh, well, that's not nice, or that's mean, or and I'm like, oh, okay, I see. I have found the space where your respect for me ends because I created a boundary.
You speak up for yourself.
Right. So it's been a little bit fraught, but I don't want to drone too much on Vincent or Danielle. What do you guys, relationships with boundaries?
Danielle, why don't you jump in?
Oh, sure. Boundaries are a great way to protect yourself and others. And before I get into all that, I mean, it took me a while to come to that conclusion and to see boundaries in my life that way. I was not as fortunate as Theo, and in having parents who understood the need for boundaries, right? It was their style of parenting was very dominating. My mom passed a long time ago when I was 6 years old in the 80s, and my father, he was a single father for about 2 months till he married a side piece. But anyway, talk about boundaries, right? Talk about boundaries. Jesus. But his style of parenting was horrible. It was, very abusive, and he certainly didn't understand the value of boundaries. I had to grow, and one of the things I I lament most about boundaries is that I had to learn them. And there were people in my life who took the time to know that if I transcended or transgressed a boundary, it was because I didn't know any better. I truly didn't know any better. Like you have the obvious boundaries, like say, for example, sexual boundaries, right? In the age of Me Too, you know not to transgress those kind of boundaries. You know that, good touch and bad touch. You know you ain't supposed to be doing certain things to certain people. But you also know, you should know as an adult, every adult should know this, when you're making an advance to somebody that's inappropriate and out of context. Out of context in the sense of not in the in the sense of not being in the right setting, if it's in a professional corporate setting or if it's in an academic setting, whatever. So, and then also a lot of our laws govern that kind of behavior. And you would hate that it would not get to that. You would hope that it wouldn't get to that, but that's the reality. But the other boundaries that wasn't so clear about, right? And this kind of got me into hot water as a Black woman, as a queer woman, as a trans woman, was those boundaries with romantic partners, right? Consenting romantic partners, I'll put it that way. I'll put it that way because I want to make it clear that it was mutual. It was a mutual consenting. Just saying, you're in a committed relationship, but yet the person is unfaithful, and and the first time, it should not be tolerated the first time, let alone the second time. And so, the ability to advocate for yourself with the use of boundaries.
Fourth time, sixth time in my time.
The ability to advocate for yourself using boundaries is imperative. From that kind of situation, from being in an abusive situation like that, I learned that the ability to utilize boundaries to advocate for yourself is absolutely imperative. So when Isaiah says to me that sometimes Isaiah now cuts people off without any other whatchamacalls they should have known, I can rock with that. I can appreciate when those people saw that. I can appreciate when those people saw that I needed some boundary training, and they loved me enough to give me that boundary training. My educators, my colleagues, but I can also appreciate when somebody has transgressed a boundary that they should have known out of common decency, and it's time to just move on past them. And I damn sure do that.
Right. Sometimes you just have to be like, okay, like,
next. Thank you. Next.
Yeah. Like, bye. And I and I've done that multiple times. And I remember I've explained it out loud before, like to myself and, and stuff like that, and gone, was that too hasty? I know it wasn't. Or should I have explained to that person? Like
everything needs an explanation, because some things you should automatically
already know.
Certain boundaries that at this point, especially in our lives, that you should know. And if you don't know, then I don't want you around me anyway, because if you're confused, you don't know why I'm like pissed off or why I had to cut you off.
100%.
Fucking with you.
I had a friend, and just because this is a friend that it just popped into and I literally, this was actually, God, I think now this was about 9 years ago, and I think they were speaking about me. They were speaking about me behind my back. And I had another
thank you, friend.
Yeah, right. And I had another friend come and tell me. And I just went, you know what? And I just stopped answering phone calls, text messages. Just that's it. Like, I was just like, nope. And I just wouldn't answer. Like, that's it. Like, no explanation. We're not having a conversation, nothing. And I think about maybe like 5 years later, this friend reached out to me. And I was feeling like, I don't know, I was feeling a little chipper at the time. And I said, sure, let's get together and sit down and chat. I think we went out for coffee or something. And and the friend was like, well, you just stopped talking to me, like, just out of nowhere. And I was like, it wasn't out of nowhere. I was like, you spoke about me to another friend, and the friend told me, and I just didn't see any use for this relationship anymore. That was it. And the friend was like, well, okay, you could have spoken to me about it. I was like, but I didn't owe you a conversation about it, because you did something to me.
Yeah.
So why do I owe you? I don't owe you a conversation. And they were like, well, I don't understand. I was like, you don't understand because boundaries. That's why. And I was like, no, I'm glad we're able to sit down and have a conversation about it now, but I never owed you a conversation. I really don't owe you this conversation, but I don't think you're a terrible person, but let this be a lesson to not operate that way with other friends, because you and I
But then now,
need to be
what you just did,
close.
now
You are
set a
better
boundary
than
though
me.
as well. Like you literally now set a boundary. So like, if there is a possibility for some type of like continued friendship or relationship or whatever it is, like it's also really important that you set those boundaries. And now they know, hey, like what you're capable of doing if they step over that line.
Absolutely. And 9 times out of 10, I will say, like, I don't really, once I've moved forward, it's kind of like, all right, like I'm good. Like we can be, we can be cordial. We can be on social media together, like each other's pictures. Oh, you had a child, or oh, you've gotten married, and that's wonderful. Let's celebrate that stuff. But as far as you being in my space where we are spending time together, that's a no-no.
No, I'd be banishing motherfuckers. I don't want to see your life. I don't give a fuck.
Well, and to your point, Vincent, it depends on. So as we always say, there's levels to this shit. So it depends on what it was. If it was, like, to me, if it was something you said something behind my back and I didn't really like it, some years have passed, that kind of situation, then okay, then fine. But we're never going to be where we were because of what it is. And it also depends on the relationship. Things are very tiered off, and stuff like that. We were very close at the time, but also I think there's, sometimes when you're in certain age brackets, I don't think there's things that you need in your 20s that you don't need in your 30s. There's things that you need in your 30s that you don't have any use for in your 40s.
Vincent, what did boundaries look like for you in your life?
I mean, it's funny, like, actually, because a lot of what Isaiah and Danielle are saying are like reminiscing with me, as well as like kind of similar to my own experiences. I didn't really have to set boundaries. Like, my parents are very like, I'm very fortunate and blessed to have the parents that I do, and the upbringing that I did. And they were very just like open and loving and just like, so they didn't, and I didn't realize at the time how especially my dad is such a generous guy, like so like loving, caring. So was my mom, but like how people take advantage of them. So like, I just kind of wanted to, I learned from their examples and stuff like that. So like, going into my late teens or early 20s, like I assumed everyone was a good person. Like there's good in everybody. And there's like,
gullible motherfucker.
Yes. And then all of a sudden I had to learn some hard life lessons that some people are really fucking shitty and fucked up. And you need boundaries to protect yourself.
Go ahead, dear.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, what you were saying, Vincent, was really making me think about like this day and age. I mean, not that anyone on this call is using illicit drugs, but like in this day and age, here we have boundaries. Like people who assert boundaries are badasses, in my opinion. I mean, in a good way. Because like here you have people just using recreational drugs for the first time and they OD because of this fentanyl being stuck into them. Or boundaries, truly boundaries. Like, so many boundaries were crossed before you got to that point. And my heart goes out to so many people in that situation. Other instances of boundaries crossing, and this had to really sober me up. And this is a great way to say it, sober me up. Because before I was really naive, like, oh, everybody's good. Yeah. But, it's nothing like being out at a nightclub or a restaurant and a handsome guy comes over and you're with all your cisgender female friends, and you're the only trans one there, and he's like, yo, I want to talk to Shorty, and he's talking to me, and all the girls be salty in their feelings or something, and these are truly not your friends, and one of them goes up to the bar when he's going to the bar to buy me a drink, and instead of looking to make sure he's not dropping anything in my drink, she goes to him, yo, you know what that is? That used to be a man. And so, yo, Shorty, you could get me really hurt like that. You don't mess like that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know when to tell people what's good with them. Like, and so it becomes really real from a very sophisticated point of view to also a very elementary point of view, like every day kicking it around your hood or kicking it around your community to really enact where you're on your job and people are messing with you.
Yeah. You have to set boundaries at work. That's all. It's like you have to set boundaries, and you kind of said it earlier, Danielle. It's not just, and everyone's actually said it, like it's not just you know, about like sexual boundaries. And, you know, I was joking around, I came in like hot and stuff like that. Like, you know, which is a strong one, but there are so many other boundaries that you really have to protect yourself against toxic people.
Yeah.
Protect your own mental health. You have to protect your own livelihood and your own happiness.
Mm.
And there's some people that like it is not your job to fix anyone. It's not like your job to make them happy. And, you know, they say misery likes company. So it's like, it's hard. Once you have those boundaries, they're there to also protect yourself. I also learned sometimes with boundaries, the other thing that'd be pissing me off is when people try to project their boundaries onto me. And not obviously people have their own boundaries, and not saying that not respecting their boundaries, like me and them. Me and, for example, say me and one of my like, you know, best friends, like, you know, Isaiah, or like, you know, another one of my best friends, the fact that we're two gay men or bi men, if we're out at the bar, people automatically think that like assume that we're together.
Yeah.
Like, think that and it's like, oh, like gay men can't be friends. And like, what do you mean gay men can't be friends? Oh, like, you know, you guys have to be fucking. It's like,
but it's like, no,
it's like
that's a whole nother conversation about the over sexualization of LGBT.
Oh,
like that's a conversation we ought to do, y'all.
Yeah,
we should do that conversation. But we should also talk. What a good part to talk about here is the boundaries that we set in our LGBTQ plus friendships.
Absolutely.
Because we've been so over sexualized since God knows when that queer people sometimes don't know how to cherish,
how to stop or control themselves, or like you said, cherish
these friendships. And mind you, I have multiple PhDs in boundaries. Let me tell you, that's how good at boundaries I am. Okay? I have 50 years experience in boundaries.
Not multiple PhDs.
Because boundaries, once again, boundaries saved my life, because when I was in school and everybody was doing cocaine, I'm not a big time cocaine or heroin addict today because I set those boundaries. I am not a big time alcoholic today because when everyone was doing alcohol and pressuring and pushing it and calling me a dummy for not doing it, I chose to stick with my boundaries and stick to my guns. The reason I am not sick in a bed right now with an incurable disease is because I set boundaries. And while everyone was saying, "Oh, you a virgin," and they were trying to demonize the fact that I was a virgin, and they were trying to that. You know, mock the virgin. I set my boundaries, and I kept my eyes on the prize. And a lot of people don't have that. I don't know. It's not that power, but that
like
level of
self-confidence as well. Like
self-confidence.
Like, you know,
Oh no, I had to.
like, amongst your peer, or like.
It wasn't self-confidence. No, but that's what boundary does. It helps with your self-confidence and you being assured of what it is that you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's why in my friendships, I am a very good friend. In my relationship, I'm a very good boyfriend. And my relationship with my child, I'm a very good parent. Because I set up healthy boundaries that benefits the both of us. It's reciprocated. It's supposed to benefit the both of us. That's why in my friendships with males, I make sure we set up those necessary boundaries. And you know that I am your friend. I am not your lover. I am not your sneak. And we sneak over on the side.
Your sneaky link.
We are friends. And if you cross me and cross my boundaries, once again, I got a PhD on how to cut your neck off and put you to the side.
But that's exactly what it is, though. Is like that. And this could be absolutely a whole other episode because of the gay community, how it is. But it's like that's had to happen. And me and Isaiah called them Dougies.
Like teach me how to not
in general. But it's like you could be very straightforward setting those boundaries. Be very upfront with your communication, like not happening, blah blah. And the other thing about it is like initially at first I might be like, you know, hey, like, you know, I just don't feel that way towards you, or hey, like you have to if you want to be my friend, you have to respect that I'm in a relationship, or if I'm in a relationship, or whatever it may be. And then it's like the first like time or two, they try to like take a little step over, and it's like remember. And then kind of to Theo's point, you just got to let them fucking have it. Like then you're like, and then it just ends up being like, what's the point? I'm just done. Like,
be fair. I think you have to be fair. Because once again, like you guys just mentioned and shared, sometimes people don't have the luxury or the privilege of coming from a place where they've learned boundaries.
Or people have ever set
boundaries
are learning.
And sometimes people are within reason. Like when it comes to sexual stuff, because my black body constantly being hypersexualized, there's certain things when it comes to sexual stuff, I cut you off automatically. I have gone through too much and experienced queer man that is 6 feet, 250 pounds, and everybody having the preconceived notions of the sex that I want to have, and being mandingo and doing this, like it is, and it's toxic and it's heavy and it's detrimental to my mental health. So if I'm bonding with you and I'm trying to be brothers and I'm trying to be friends, and you cross that line, you get one time.
Yeah. That's real, Theo. That's real. And I hear a lot of self-efficacy in that. I hear a lot of self-actualization in that. I love all of that, what you're saying. And it took me a long time to come to that, like to come to the fact that, and what I like about you and other and Vincent as well as Isaiah is that we don't have this thing. One thing, some people who don't understand boundaries will often say, "Oh, what do you think you're better than us?" Or no, I don't think I'm better than that.
No,
I
me.
certainly
Yes,
don't
I'm better
think
than
I'm better.
Weird.
Some yes, some no.
It's like actually,
some yes, some no.
Yes,
like,
you
the
better.
ones
actually,
that
we are.
don't give a fuck about your boundaries or keep on trying to test you.
Yeah,
I'm definitely better than you. The
That's
ones that
gaslighting.
don't know about they just don't know the boundaries, and you tell that they don't know what they just did, but they know that they did something wrong,
but
and they're
that's gaslighting. Trying to make you think that you setting up your boundaries to protect yourself and the other person is wrong. That's them trying to let you know, the uncomfortableness that you're feeling is nothing. You're wrong. Right. You're supposed to feel natural. Someone calling you, thinking you have a big dick. And we're friends, and your friends is pushing up on you, telling you, "Oh, you look real sexy today."
All the meat in the world, you're doing that to your friends. Get over yourself.
That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing too. Thank you, Danielle.
That's what makes you happy at night. Jeez.
Wait a minute.
All the fat camper out here at X YouTube or whatever.
Seriously,
friends don't understand that.
Honey, people are buying it and paying for it. Are you kidding me? This is what you're doing with your life.
We did.
But
I
wanted to say, what I love about what Isaiah, Vincent, and Theo have said, it is that it's not bougie. It's just natural. It really is a natural way to advocate for yourself.
And if you don't advocate for yourself, who's going to do it? Like, you really have to think of it in that way.
Yeah, and for the other person. And as we already pointed out, this kind of advocacy, these boundaries are really sometimes can be the matter of life and death. For real. I hear that clearly. One thing I did want to mention really quickly was about I am grateful for when I didn't know certain boundaries, and that people would kind of tell me, give me grace, because you know what, I've met people in my life that make millions of dollars, and I've met people in my life that are on welfare, and sometimes I had an interview with Felicia Rashad, and it was just she and I were just in a room together. Every now and again, the associate dean came in and out of the room, and it was about an hour and a half long, and I felt that way. Like, I felt like that grace. I had learned that grace of boundaries. You can move effortlessly throughout various generations, socioeconomic statuses, just even various faiths. We've talked about faith, but so I appreciate that. I appreciate when people gave me grace and taught me a little bit, and I haven't always appreciated when people are like, you should know better, because maybe the person doesn't know better. But I think those things are common sense. You also have to
be willing to have that ownership and accountability, where it's like, if someone, is at least willing to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize, like, even though some boundaries, like we were saying earlier, should be almost like common sense. They're like common out, but some people, it's not common for some people. So like when they cross it, and then you identify, and they're like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, we didn't have this conversation. We shouldn't have had to need it to have this conversation. But now that you cross this line, their reaction to the situation's also telling where they're apologetic, like, oh my god, and then actually go and follow through with it, like, that will never happen again. It's like, okay, like, this person, other than this, has been a genuine person. We all make mistakes. Let me give them like another chance. Like,
and to my point about that was that, and I'm just thinking about it now, and I've met millionaires. I mean, I knew one millionaire really well because she financed my education. Warren Buffett's older sister, Doris Buffett. She passed last year. But the boundaries are very important to people, especially people in entertainment and people who have gone to school, right, and learned a trade or a doctor, a medical doctor, or people. Boundaries are very important to a lot of different people, but also boundaries are important. I've seen big mamas have boundaries. Some people's grandmothers have boundaries, and
I think boundaries transcends income, transcends education, transcends race. I think all sorts of people. I've met people who, like you said, are millionaires.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Who are millionaires who have no goddamn boundaries. I've met people who live in public housing, who are in public assistance, who are solid and rooted in their boundaries and their ethics and their morals and their values. And the reason that we're having this conversation is because it's obvious someone's missing here.
Who?
And
oh no, man, not who.
I'm gonna go. Yeah, who? And the reason that person is non-existing is because they don't have an understanding of clear boundaries. Right. We are working here with one another. If I'm going to sit here and I'm going to hypersexualize my conversations and my relationship with Isaiah or Vincent or Danielle, newsflash, that is inappropriate and that's overstepping a boundary. Especially if Isaiah, Danielle, Vincent, and I was just about to say the other person's name.
But not only that, you make people feel uncomfortable. I mean,
very uncomfortable because we are working together. How I can act, the mistakes that you can make in a social settings are not the same mistakes that you can make in a work setting.
Absolutely,
and you have to understand that. Again, you have to have a higher level of understanding. Meaning, you're no longer a Neanderthal; you're a Homo sapien. That level of understanding.
Yeah.
If you're still thinking like a Neanderthal and thinking that any good-looking guy you bump into or any good-looking girl you bump into, you try to hump and think that you can drop dimes and drop compliments to try to get into their pants, that is a very primitive Neanderthal way of thinking.
And the sad part about it is sometimes those people are not even attractive.
Oh, hello. And once again, I'm not going to badmouth this individual because
no, I'm speaking in general.
God has already badmouthed them.
No, I'm thinking. I know one guy. He's got no teeth in his fucking mouth. And every time I turn around, he's talking about women. You women don't do right. We don't do right. Are you serious? You
didn't do your mouth right.
Again, if your teeth are like the Spice Girls, they're all a different color and they're all doing their own thing. Don't try to holla at me.
And I just want to add as well,
not the Spice Girls.
Okay, like all the Spice Girls.
Spice up your life.
Like, tell me what you want. What you really want.
What you really want. And I just want to add as well that, and just to lightly touch on that, obviously, like we said, there's a reason that person is no longer sitting alongside us, and I just want to be clear that just because people communicate or handle boundaries very differently does not mean that they don't possess them. Mm-hmm. So where one person might speak up and be very forward about their boundaries and what they deem appropriate or not appropriate, the other person, and I mean myself, when I'm done and when I feel a boundary has been breached, I'm done. And I'm not going to communicate with you why I'm done. I'm not going to defend bad behavior. And I'm not going to defend a breach of boundary either, especially if it's if it's directed toward someone that I respect and I enjoy working alongside. So, for me, there was no need for further conversation. So I just want to say put that out there.
And we're living in a day and age of Me Too and a global pandemic, COVID.
Hello.
6 feet and wear a mask. First of all, that's a boundary.
Okay.
and how dare you? How dare you? Like I hope whoever does it going forward, and they of their own volition, and they are a person of sound mind and an adult. I hope they feel the social backlash from it because you ought to. Shame on you.
Absolutely. No, but the typical person that doesn't understand boundaries, that doesn't want to understand boundaries.
Yeah,
they will gaslight you.
They miss out on enough opportunities and friendships. They'll learn.
They will gaslight you and to believing that your boundaries again are the problem, that you are a control freak, a compulsive person that's obsessive with controlling people. And I'm like, come on. If I am working with Vincent and I'm sitting here talking to Vincent about how big, how fat his ass is, or oh Vincent, I bet you have a big dick. No, let's be honest and let's be true.
That's disgusting. We laugh about it and it's funny, but it's
it's disgusting. Now, if I met Vincent. Yeah. If I met Vincent in a social setting, and now me and Vincent are going to be working together, and if I was talking derogatory to Vincent in a social setting, now that we're working together, that no longer exists. Boundary.
Yeah. I mean, go buy you some. If you're that hard up, go buy you some. I mean that in the strongest way. Go buy you some. The people out here selling and buying it. Go,
no, and mind you, and when you buying it, you can is a catalog, is a variety.
Okay, listen, go on. Listen, if you that hard up, go on OnlyFans.
You know? Okay, but here's the other thing, right?
$20 subscription.
And if you want the real deal, buy it.
I hear you very clearly, Theo, but this is another boundary that gets my goal. I've had people borrow money from me, and I'm not talking about $20. I'm talking about $500.
Oh no, you better than me.
And then I had to learn the hard way. Like, you done borrow a couple $100. I mean, this is again global pandemic. Russia acting crazy. Trump was acting nutty, and you borrow $300 from me, and don't call me and tell me wipe my ass or nothing like that. You don't give a nothing about nothing. You got my money and ran down the road. Oh no, sister, I'm from the hood. We don't play that. I will come get you. I will come get you.
No, different levels.
What's wrong with people? And I get you. Maybe. And here's another thing, right? In that instance, I really get that. I really get people's anxiety around money, especially when money is tight for them and they have to borrow it, or they feel like they have to borrow. But I'm the type of person, if I have to live in a homeless shelter, I'm not borrowing no money from people, because I have realized that that's an extreme, but I have realized in my life, I don't have people like that to call on. So I better make provisions for myself.
You see, I've been fortunate enough where I have, and I barely needed to, but I don't mind, like, when it comes to like close friends and family. But there's that rule of thumb. It's like when you let people borrow money, like, to try to have the expectation not to get it back, like that way, like to preserve like the friendship and stuff like that. My whole thing is like, times in the past, it's always comes down to communication. Like,
yes,
like if the person like just MIAs you, then it's like, okay, now I'm starting to feel a little bit disrespected. Like, if you need a little bit more time, just talk to me. I'm that easy. Like,
well, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. There's one person recently, and it's not gonna happen ever again. They borrow what was it? They asked to borrow $500. I gave them $300. And in Christmas past, I didn't get Merry Christmas, nothing. They couldn't.
Oh no!
I got no happy. We supposed to be friends. I got Happy New Year, nothing, cat dog. And I was calling them. I was like, "Hey, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year."
Yeah.
I'm like, and they didn't. And my birthday passed. Hey, cat dog, nothing. So finally, they gave me the money back, and I'm like, you know what? This friendship is over. This was no friendship.
Yeah.
This was no friendship. You gave them the money back, yes, but it wasn't about the money. It was about the common decency.
Yes, like they keep like our friendship shouldn't stop.
Or people who you lend money to, and they go, "Oh, I don't have it right now, Theo." But then you see in their Instagram and their Facebook, "Oh, you're in Bahamas. You went to Mexico?
Yeah.
You went to Puerto Rico?"
It's like you went to Puerto Rico and
I'm moving to Mexico.
No, I don't got the money right now. I'm gonna hit you back later.
Must be nice.
It's like, so you went on vacation with my money?
They went to Cinco de Mayo.
I don't got it yet.
Yeah, because the resort has it.
Okay, boundary, note to self.
Listen, I know who to call when somebody owes me money. Isaiah, can you help me get my money back, honey?
And listen, here's the thing. Like, Vincent and I have known each other for over a decade. So there's been times like in our 20s and things like that where we've borrowed money from one another and stuff like that. So like, but as you can see, if you handle it properly and you pay each other back and stuff like that, you can maintain a friendship.
Yeah.
It's about communication.
You guys have boundaries.
Yeah. And you respect those boundaries too.
Yeah. And you got to talk about it. Like, there was a time in the past where I was like, hey, like, can I do this in increments? Because it's a little tight right now. No problem. But like,
communication. That's it. Like
talk about it.
It's not beneath me. Once again, I have a ton of brothers. It's not beneath me to cut a family member the fuck off. Even my own brother. I have a brother that I do not have anything to do with because this Negro does not understand boundaries. And when it comes to the survival of the fittest, I choose me over you. And I will save myself because it's important. Once again, I am not a martyr. I am not Gandhi.
But your parent.
I am a person. I am not one of those people that I'm going to sacrifice myself to make you feel better.
Yeah, and your parent, and that's another boundary. That's another boundary. Those of us who are not parents or whose children have grown and gone out of the house, we have to know, you're a parent. Like, what do I look like coming to you as an adult, asking you for help, and you got a whole child? You got to get ready to educate them and everything. Please, I ain't got time.
No, and feed them because this one here ain't no joke. No, but once again, boundaries are important. They're good for your mental health. They're good for your spiritual health, and they're good for your physical health. I love me. When I'm not sleeping with my boyfriend, I sleep all the time.
I love that.
That's how much I
really love
boundaries.
Me too.
This is big for changing a difficult it's not even difficult, but it's difficult for some people. Changing a difficult situation, a conversation into a very charming one. I'm so grateful. This is my second time joining you guys. Vincent, Isaiah, and Theo, thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait for our next talk.
Of course, honestly.
Loved having you.
Oh, literally, same. Like, it's, and speaking about one of our favorite topics, boundaries together.
I know. Danielle is my spirit and my spirit animal.
Right.
Oh.
I love it.
Until next time, everybody.
Yeah. Until next time, everyone.
Until next time.
Until next time. This is Making It Make Sense. Okay.